It's debate night, again, on Next. The candidates in the closely contested 7th Congressional District have bold positions. The Democrat wants to divest from some border security. The Republican wants to defund some local prosecutors.
This is actually really terrifying when I think about potentially losing the House majority.
The Democrat is distancing herself from supervised drug injection sites, and the Republican is backing away from his election rigging claims.
I haven't asked that we overturn the 2020 elections. This is not about President Trump.
Tonight, they debate here. But first, a sheriff has his opponent arrested at a debate in the high country. And 2 years to the day since a monster fire blew up in Grand County, a survivor is certain that she can help her neighbors if she can fight the system that makes their lives difficult years after that fire. All that is next.
It was a fall day like this one 2 years ago when the East Troublesome Fire exploded in Grand County, grew to the size of the city of Denver in a few hours. It eventually burned up and over Grand Lake, killing 2 people and destroying 366 homes. Only a change in the winds and some exceptional firefighting kept that fire from burning Estes Park. 2 years later, our Steve Steger found a slow rebuilding process and some determined survivors.
We saved everything we had to be able to buy this place. It was our dream.
2 years after Amanda Schindeldecker's dream became her nightmare, very little has changed here.
Sometimes I'm just in disbelief that this is our reality.
All these months after the East Troublesome Fire destroyed her home, a battle with her insurance company means the rebuild hasn't started.
Filed our insurance claim, called adjusters, called adjusters, called adjusters. It was pulling teeth to get somebody to call us back.
An adjuster came, then lost the info.
We were like, are you kidding?
The frustration led Amanda and her husband to hire an attorney.
I became a little obsessive, I think, about insurance law and what the requirements were in Colorado.
Her obsession.
So right now we're in Denver Summer Law in Granby, Colorado.
Prompted her attorney to offer Amanda a job.
Now I'm a certified paralegal in a whole new field.
A huge pivot for a stay-at-home mom with a background in healthcare management. The East Troublesome Fire ended up changing her life in more ways than one.
I now can look at it and I call it my silver lining. And then it ignited a passion that I didn't even know I had.
Now she's helping neighbors navigate a process she unfortunately knows well, fighting insurance companies that have been slow to pay out.
I've had a number of people say, we wouldn't want anybody else fighting for us but you, because you've been there, you've lived this, you know the pain we feel.
2 years after the East Troublesome Fire, only about a third of the homes that burned have been permitted to rebuild.
That's new, that's new.
Very few homeowners have been able to do it.
It's frustrating. Part of me just wants my old life back.
Now they have a neighbor fighting for them.
And when I get the text that says, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for us. We never thought we were going to see this day. Those are the best moments.
It feels pretty good.
Usually makes me teary-eyed.
For Next, I'm Steve Steger.
Amanda filed a lawsuit against her insurance company yesterday. She just took the LSAT last week. She told us she plans on going to law school to work on insurance law and estate planning. The felony case against a Democratic state senator has been tossed out by a judge because prosecutors unknowingly gave the grand jury false information. So that ends the case against Senator Pete Lee of Colorado Springs. He was accused of voting from this house in his district, house where prosecutors said he didn't live. That would be illegal if he voted there. Prosecutors said he really lived here outside his district. Living there is not a crime, but voting elsewhere would have been. A judge threw out the case today because grand jurors were given incorrect information about when exactly Lee changed his address in an online system for attorneys. I've never seen a political candidate get arrested at a debate, but it just happened in Eagle County. Republican Sheriff James Van Beek told the crowd at the debate that his unaffiliated opponent, Paul Agneberg, had outstanding warrants. And as Agneberg left the debate, he was arrested. He was wanted in Eagle and Lake County for failure to appear on traffic offenses, including driving without a license or registration. In fact, Agneberg had told the Vail Daily newspaper earlier this year he has made the choice not to register his car since 2016. He landed in the Eagle County Jail for that earlier this week. Agneberg says that the undersheriff came up to him as they were leaving and arrested him. The Eagle County Sheriff's Office said they arrested him after the debate so he could still make his case to voters. One of Colorado's most closely contested congressional races is the 7th District, which includes Broomfield, Jeffco, and several mountain counties. Democratic State Senator Brittany Pedersen and Republican candidate Eric Odlin debated here today. I asked them about their plans to defund some law enforcement agencies. Ms. Pedersen, you signed a letter last year urging President Biden to, quote, divest from immigration enforcement agencies like Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and Customs and Border Patrol. How would defunding ICE and Border Patrol make Americans safer?
Thanks for bringing that up. That's broad language, so it can be made out to be anything. So what I support is making sure that we secure our border, but we look strategically at the investments that we're making. And we look at 2 criteria when we're doing that. Is this the best use of dollars? Is this the most efficient way that we're going to do this? And is this a humane policy? So, for example, right now, people wait up to 12 hours in line as they go across the border to have their cars, the commercial and personal cars looked at. We know that we can actually bring screening so that we can quickly identify people and drugs being trafficked over the border. This will also address some of our supply chain issue. It's also, I don't support funding the cruel border policies of separating families. There's hundreds of kids that don't know where their parents are. And I don't support targeting law-abiding immigrants here in Colorado. I think that we need to be focused on criminals.
Mr. Odlin, you said that you talked with House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy about defunding state and local prosecutors if they exercise their prosecutorial discretion in a way that you guys don't like. How would defunding prosecutors make Americans safer?
Well, right now we have lawlessness in Colorado. We're leading the nation in auto theft. We're leading the nation in bank robberies. We're the cocaine capital of the country. Violent crime is up over 30% here in Colorado. This is a result of not enforcing the law and soft on crime policies that my opponent has directly supported. So what Congress can do is make sure that federal funding goes to the right places and use the power of the purse as pressure to make sure that the rule of law is upheld. Now, I never would support defunding the police. We need to make sure that law enforcement is well-funded, resourced, and trained. And we have to restore the integrity that was lost because the Democrats push to defund the police. This is very problematic. We must address crime at its root, and that's upholding the law.
The candidates in Colorado's 7th Congressional District are answering for things they've said and done in the past. The Republican said the election was rigged and that the U.S. has an illegitimate government.
I've acknowledged that Biden is the legitimate president.
The Democrat, known for her support of supervised drug injection sites, says she won't vote for that in Washington.
It's not something that it would be relevant at the federal level.
Next presents The Race for Congress after this.
We return to Next Presents, The Race for Congress. We asked Democratic State Senator Brittany Pedersen and Republican candidate Eric Odlin about some things they've said in the past. Mr. Odlin, you have falsely claimed that the 2020 presidential election was rigged. Let's listen to that.
The 2020 election, it was rigged. Absolutely rigged. If you do enough looking into it, I think you'll be convinced.
That claim that the election was rigged is false, and it's also dangerous. That lie led people to storm the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. It led to the deaths of Americans. That lie has also led to death threats against election workers here in Colorado, ongoing threats to people's lives. Should that false claim, that dangerous claim, disqualify you in the eyes of voters?
Well, I think your statement is a bit extreme, Kyle, and I don't think that to make it a black or white issue with something so complex and nuanced is justice to the issue. I've called into question, just like Hillary Clinton and Stacey Abrams and hundreds of Democrat legislators did in the 2016 elections, that our elections are secure. But in every speech, including this one, I talk about looking forward. I haven't asked that we overturn the 2020 elections. This is not about President Trump, who I make this about a concern for the American citizens and the integrity of our constitutional republic. And this should be a nonpartisan issue, that we have a dialogue. And your rhetoric, in fact, makes it very hard for us to have a dialogue that comes to the solution that makes our election secure.
Well, pointing out the The fact that the claim is false is not rhetoric. That's just a fact. Pointing out that it's gotten people killed is also just a fact. You additionally said that the election had been undermined by fraud, corrupted, and we now have an illegitimate government in power. You believe that we have an illegitimate government in power?
I've nuanced my perspective and my statements, recognizing the divisiveness of that language. So I've evolved. I'm not a politician. I started that speech I gave was the first speech I gave in the U.S. Senate race, and I recognize the divisiveness of that language.
Have you changed your beliefs, or have you just stopped saying it out loud because it's gotten you in trouble?
No, I don't think this is a partisan issue. I've acknowledged that Biden is the legitimate president, and I'm looking forward. What can we do in a nonpartisan way to restore trust in the institution of our elections?
Ms. Pedersen, you tout your record on fighting the opioid crisis, and part of that record was your advocacy for Denver to create a supervised drug injection site, which is a place where people who use injectable drugs could go to get high under medical supervision. That idea got tremendous public pushback, and even your fellow Democrats abandoned it. Let's listen to what you told me in 2019.
We have people who are already using. If we don't create this site, they're going to be in the parks, in the alleys, in the public bathrooms. It doesn't stop use.
So my question is, do you still believe that supervised drug injection sites are a good idea, and would you support similar efforts at the federal level?
Thank you for the question, Kyle. We know that this is evidence-based. It would save lives. It's irrelevant in this race, but it's something that the doctors, the experts here in Colorado brought as what we can do to prevent overdose deaths when we're in this opioid epidemic and crisis. Unfortunately, it's been used as a political weapon. And so because stigma is the biggest barrier that we face to getting people the help that they need, it's why I didn't bring the bill, and it's why I don't think that they should actually address it at the state level. And so it would save lives for that pilot program for the people who have access, but it does detrimental damage for our ability to come together and reduce the stigma for people who are struggling with addiction.
So if I heard you right, you said that it's irrelevant in this race, your previous support for, or your continued support for supervised injection sites?
It's not something that it would be relevant at the federal level.
And why is that? Because you don't think that the federal government has any role to play in terms of that part of the opioid crisis? Explain that.
Yeah, this was something around a state law that would have taken away the rights of, if you had a site like this, that you could actually lose property rights, and it was just addressing that for one pilot program. This is not something that has anything to do with the seat that I'm running for, but it's something that would save lives. Unfortunately, it's been used as a political weapon.
Would you support federal funding for supervised injection sites in communities that choose that?
No.
Mr. Odlin?
Well, that's interesting because President Biden has proposed exactly that same thing, federal funding for clean injection sites and the distribution of drug paraphernalia. So I'm glad to hear that my opponent wouldn't support such a naive proposal, because enabling addiction does not solve the root of this problem. So I wonder what my opponent thinks would solve this opioid epidemic. You know, the fentanyl crisis we're experiencing here in Colorado, especially given that she worked to reduce the penalties for fentanyl distribution from a felony to a misdemeanor.
The candidates for Colorado's 7th Congressional District make their closing arguments to you at home. Next.
Welcome back to Next Presents the Race for Congress. Democratic State Senator Brittany Pedersen and Republican candidate Eric Odlin make their closing pitch for your vote. Each candidate will now have a 1-minute closing statement to voters. We determined via coin toss earlier. Mr. Odlin, you'll go first.
So Eric Odlin, running to be your next representative. My name's an odd name with 2 A's. Just remember that. That's how you pronounce it. I'm a combat veteran, a West Point graduate, tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 for valor. Put my life on the line for this country because I love this country. I love Colorado. I have 3 beautiful children. And right now, everything's going wrong. We have out of control inflation. We have rising crime here in Colorado. We've got significant problems, including unprecedented global instability, that must be addressed through sound leadership. I want to bring my combat experience and then a decade of experience in the energy sector running businesses all over the world to solving these tough problems so that my children have a brighter future. Your children have a brighter future. I never endeavored to be a politician. This was not in the cards. I'd retired to the mountains of pine because I wanted peace. I'd had enough of war, enough of conflict. But in this time of crisis, we need sound leaders who will do the right for all constituents and heal the divisiveness in this country. Thank you.
Mr. Rowland, thank you. Ms. Pedersen.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Marshall, for having me. My name's Brittany Pedersen, and I have been, it's been the honor of my life to serve this community for the last decade. I also never saw myself ever running for office. I got involved because I am a product of this community. I grew up in Jefferson County. I was a high-risk youth and I faced a lot of obstacles at home, but I was given a chance to build a better life. Because of the investments that this community made in me, I became the first in my family to graduate from high school and college and went a much different path than I was likely to go. And that's why coming out of college, I started working for candidates that I believed in, because I know firsthand that the people who are elected can make or break it for regular people like me. So I dedicated the last decade serving the community to level the playing field, invest in our public schools, increasing access to early childhood education, making sure that we reduce costs for health insurance premiums. And there's so much, I'm already running out of time, but really quick, I want to thank my husband for all of his support, my son Davis for always reminding me why I do this every day, and my mom for being willing to tell her story to try to save lives here in Colorado.
You've been watching a portion of Next Presents, the race for Congress. The rest of that debate is streaming on 9 News Plus at 6:30, or you can watch it all now on 9news.com or on the 9 News and Next YouTube channels. It's one of an unprecedented 6 debates that we are televising this year. Debates in Colorado's 7th and 8th congressional districts and every statewide office except for governor. Monday night on Next, the candidates for Secretary of State will debate. We can send you the full debate schedule and a link to the video of this entire 7th Congressional District debate tonight if you want to text the word debate to 303-871-1491. And we'll also re-air more of tonight's debate at 9:30 on KTVD. Didn't think you were getting out of here on a Friday without your good news, did you? Some stuff that stopped us in our tracks today. Next. The last 321 Fridays around here have ended with your good news. So let's see it. Behold a man and his fruit. Bree Coulthard wrote in bragging about her husband's tomato. They say it is the 2nd largest ever grown in Colorado, 3.9 pounds. It's big. Dorothy's joy was seeing her grandson's last T-ball game of the season. It would appear his joy are the snacks in the glove. Looks like he's got some Pringles and some fruit snacks going on there. JF wrote in to say that she has been having a really tough time with chemo lately, but her youngest turned 3 today. She said, "My girls and husband give me life." And Matt, a proud dad, wrote in to celebrate Jonah Jared Kenischnecht. He said, "Looking forward to hearing how you attempt our last name." How did I do, Matt? Kenischnecht? In the neighborhood? See you next time.